Good afternoon, and welcome to the Scuttlebutt Podcast. My name's Richard Fleek. Just want to do a little intro before we actually start interviewing people in the next week or two. I already have a scheduled interview with my good buddy Andrew Farrer, who is a combat Marine, 2 deployments, a whole bunch of accolades. And so I just wanted to give you guys a rundown what the Scuttlebutt Podcast is. So I'm going to go back to talking to my grandparents about the war. Both my grandfathers were combat veterans. One was in the Navy, one was in the Army. My grandfather that was in the Army, he served with Old Hickory 30th Division during World War II. He pushed all the way across Europe, was shot, earned a Purple Heart literally 3 weeks before the fighting stopped. And ever since I was a little kid, I would always ask questions, talk to them. I just loved hearing their stories. They had some great stories that kind of just blew my mind with the human endurance, with the human body, how it's pushed to its limits and bounces back. And while I would be talking to my grandpa Carr, this is my mom's dad, a lot of times he would break down and he would get really emotional. And it always pushed me more to ask him more questions because my grandfather was literally the strongest person I've ever met in my life. And to see a man who is literally the strongest person you ever met to break down and cry, well up and tear. Like, what the hell happened to my grandfather some 60 years ago to still, make him crack? It always intrigued me. And every time on our way up to go visit him, he lived about 6 hours away from us. He lived in Munising, Michigan. My family grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, so it was about a 6-hour drive. On the way up, I remember vividly my mom lecturing me, stop asking your grandfather about the war, it upsets him. And my thought was, yeah, that's why I ask him questions, because I want to know, like, it just intrigues me, like, what he went through. What my grandmothers went through, because they were married, both grandparents were married at the time. What were my grandmothers thinking when they were off fighting wars, scared to death to look out their window to see a government car pulling up in your driveway? And so years go by, I joined the Navy. I had my own stories, met a lot of fabulous people, my shipmates, they're brothers for life. And after I got out of the Navy, it was kind of struggled in my transition from military life to civilian life. So I joined the American Legion, Fort Dearborn Post 364 in Dearborn, Michigan. Became super active, went through the chairs, junior vice, senior vice, and the commander. Did many events with them, talked to some of the best war fighters this planet has ever seen. And that was one of my favorite things to do, is just sit at the bar and talk to these guys. And if I would go to another American Legion anywhere throughout the country in the state of Michigan, I would literally just find the old man sitting at the bar, go sit up next to him, order a beer, and just start asking him questions. And these stories just blew me away. And I always thought, I need to start recording these and make a little file, eventually, give the file to their family, with some documentation and their story from their actual mouth. And just tell them, it might be hard for you to listen to this now, but one day you're going to want to hear this. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. And then this podcast thing exploded. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity this is. Let's take this project, turn it into a podcast, and I'll just travel and talk to veterans on and record it. So that's when I met Andrew Farr a couple years ago, and I pitched the idea to him, and he loved it. I asked him if he would want to be my co-host, and he said absolutely. He's not here today. Again, I'm just doing a little intro explaining what the Scuttlebutt Podcast is, and he'll be on the following episodes as we navigate the veteran community and get their stories. So that's where we're at today. I just want to take a few minutes to explain the Scuttlebutt. I'll just explain where the name the Scuttlebutt came from. The Scuttlebutt Podcast. Originally, when I talked to Andrew, our original name for this project was going to be Veterans of Middle Tennessee Podcast. But then as I thought and I started getting all the equipment together, I thought, well, I don't really want to pigeonhole us to Middle Tennessee. What if there's somebody in California or the East Coast, New York, somewhere that wants to hear these stories, but I feel like, well, this is Middle Tennessee, so they just skip on over at my podcast. So I said, hey, Andrew, how about the Scuttlebutt Podcast? So Scuttlebutt is United States Navy. The Scuttlebutt is a water cooler. So anytime when you're in an office setting and people congregate around the water cooler, and that's where rumors start, all the gossip, the BS, just sit around and bullshit. So the term scuttlebutt came from a water cooler in the United States Navy, which has two meanings. It means the water cooler. Scuttlebutt means a water cooler, and it also means gossip or, just sitting around bullshitting. So that's where the Scuttlebutt podcast came through, and I think it's a perfect fit. I hope you guys enjoy it. We have a lot of great guests coming up. So I'll see you there. And thank you. God bless. And hope you guys have a great week. And again, I'll see you soon.